Okay, let's take a look at section 2.6, problem number 36. A limit as t approaches 0 of tangent of 4t over t times the secant of t. Okay, first thing we're going to notice right away is that if you did try plug and chug, you're going to end up with a big fat 0 right there in the denominator, so that is not going to work. So what we're going to try to do is take advantage of the one idea that we talked about in class, that the only trig limit you guys are actually responsible for knowing is the limit as x approaches 0, or in this case we'd say t approaches 0, of sine of x over x, and that limit is equal to 1. Anything that you have other than a sine, you're going to try to convert into a sine. So I think, and hopefully I have room to make this work here, we're going to try to change that tangent of 4t into what we need it to be. Now this is going to get interesting and a little bit messy right here, but let's see what we got. Tangent of an angle, in this case tangent of 4t, can be broken down into the sine of the same angle, 4t, divided by the cosine of the same angle. So what I have in blue right there is kind of taking the place of this tangent of 4t. Now, that's the numerator. We still have the denominator to worry about, which is going to have a t in it, and I think I would like that better if I put it in front of that cosine rather than after. And I also need to take care of this secant of t right down here. Well, a reciprocal trig identity like secant or cosecant or cotangent in the denominator of your fraction doesn't make a whole lot of sense. A secant on the bottom is more easily dealt with as a cosine up there in the numerator. Okay, so we're dividing by 1 over cosine, which is just multiplying by cosine up on the top. So now at this point, we're getting a little bit closer to what we wanted. The only difference being here, guys, that we've got a sine of 4t up here in the numerator. I would need a 4t in the denominator in order to get that to work out. So I wonder, let me see if I can just slide that over a little bit. Okay, now what we've said before you cannot do, that a lot of people want to do, is pull that 4 out and bring it in front there. That does not work, everybody. 4 sine of t is not the same function as the sine of 4t. So we really have to avoid the temptation to do that. You're not going to get rid of that 4 right there, guys. We're stuck with it. So our only hope is to put a 4 in the denominator to match it up. So I'm going to multiply the denominator here by 4, but if I'm going to do that, I also have to multiply the numerator by 4. And I think if we do that, we're actually not too far off from this thing being set here. So this is now a limit as t approaches 0 of, and I tell you what, this bracket here is probably unnecessary, but I'm going to go ahead and put it in. And let's take a look. I'm going to write this actually as 2 different fractions here, guys. Now, we've got the sine of 4t up in the numerator. Sine of 4t is right there. And putting that together, that gives us the 4t that we wanted in the denominator. And then I'm going to multiply that now by everything that's left over that I didn't include in that first fraction, which has a 4 out in front, and then a cosine of t after that. And then it looks like we have a cosine 4t in the denominator, and I think that should take care of everything that we had there originally. Now, what we've accomplished right here, guys, is we've made this now the limit of a product, and this limit right here as t approaches 0 is one we know. If this one over here worries you a little bit, I just have to remind everybody of a pretty basic fact that the cosine of 0, whether we're talking about degrees or radians, is equal to 1, is not equal to 0. So plug and chug should work fine when we put it in right here. So now, we don't even ever really think about this, but I'm going to apply the product law here for limits, meaning that the limit of a product is equal to the product of the 2 individual limits. So I hate to say we're distributing a limit, but that's kind of the way people tend to think about this. So our first one, the limit as t approaches 0 of sine of any angle divided by that same angle is just going to equal 1. And now for the second fraction here, the limit as t approaches 0 of this fraction, well, let's see, that gives us a 4 times the cosine of 0, which is 1 up on top, and on the bottom, the cosine of 4 times 0 is 1 as well. So it looks like our answer here is going to be 1 times 4, which should get us 4 for the answer to number 36.